Hi, you are watching the Lookup channel with me, Yuri Matsarsky, as today's host. So, the war started by Russia against Ukraine is not going as planned in the Kremlin. The Russians did not achieve a quick and easy victory. The Ukrainian army and the Ukrainian state did not collapse. On the contrary, they quite effectively resist aggression, replenishing the lists of killed invaders and destroyed Russian equipment every day. The Russian economy and industry turned out to be absolutely unprepared for the war and the Western sanctions that followed it. Things got to the point that Moscow undertook to buy shells from North Korea. Before that, by the way, North Korea armed Saddam Hussein in Iraq, and where is Saddam now? It is obvious that all of Moscow's plans for Ukraine have failed. The country could not be captured or dismembered neither in 2 weeks nor in 6 months. The Russian army is suffering unprecedented losses, and the economy is still slowly but surely slipping to the level of the hungry 90s of the last century. But Russia is not making visible attempts to end the obviously disastrous war. Moreover, neither the shortage of manpower nor the depletion of stocks of weapons and equipment are forcing Russia to abandon its unattainable plans to subjugate most of the territory of Ukraine. Why is this happening? First of all, because Putin is an idiot in the direct medical sense of the word. He is incapable of distinguishing reality from his own fantasies, and we can judge the subjects of his fantasies by his numerous statements and publications. Obviously, he is obsessed with inferiority complex and is ready to jump out of his pants just to prove to everyone around him that he is no less talented, legitimate and smart than any of the Western leaders. He lives by this necessity, miserable, cowardly and vile, like Tolkien's Gollum. Putin, all his political career, strives for his precious to be no worse than ours, to force the West to speak with him on an equal footing, and even better, let this West curry favor and grovel before him. A grey man, a slime man, completely devoid of empathy but filled to the brim with envy and fictitious grievances. You know, in the Dark Ages, people explained all the troubles by the actions of witches or evil spirits. Now stupid, narrow-minded people are also looking everywhere for traces of conspiracies. Putin is one of those people. He does not understand at all how the economy works. Despite the endless years at the head of the state, he has not figured out why crises happen and how they should be overcome. For him, everything that he does not like, that seems offensive to him, is the machinations of the West. He seriously believes that the USSR collapsed not because it was a really failed state from the very beginning, but because the Americans and the Germans vilely destroyed it. In the same way, he believes that the democratic revolutions in the post-Soviet space were inspired by the West with the sole purpose of harming Russia. For him, the processes of democratization in Eastern Europe and Central Asia are not a natural process, but an anti-Russia conspiracy artificially inflated by the Americans. How can a person who is not very smart but possessing a considerable army respond to such a threat, albeit invented by himself? By starting the war, of course. Pay attention to the rhetoric of the Russian authorities and TV presenters. They explain that they are fighting in Ukraine against NATO, against European Union, against unipolar world, and most importantly, against the United States. And many, following their idiot president, really believe in this nonsense. Russia is a country that only since the beginning of this year has twice let itself be deceived by a cretin who happened to be in the presidential chair. For the first time, when believed that Ukraine is a part of Russia, which Putin's army will easily and naturally return to Moscow's control. And the second time, when swallowed with pleasure the lie that almost the whole world world is fighting against Russia in Ukraine. Putin has been preparing for this war for a very long time. He rearmed the army, stole and bought Western defense technologies, pumped people up with hatred for the West and Ukraine. He was in no hurry. Under the condition of a dictatorship, he had nowhere to rush. He destroyed the opposition and in fact secured a lifelong rule for himself. And he most likely would have started this war even if he knew in advance that he would not win it. Simply because at some point, most likely after the Ukrainian Revolution of Dignity in 2014, this war became the raison d'etre of his existence. The war can be stopped right now. To preserve the remnants of still combat-ready Russian military formation, some parts of the equipment, to try to negotiate with the world on the partial lifting of sanctions in exchange for the occupation of Ukrainian territories. In general, at least half a step, but move away from the abyss the militarism has brought Russia. But it won't. Putin will not stop the war. He's just obsessed with it. If the memories of people from the inner circle of Adolf Hitler can be trusted, the German Führer already in the spring of 1943 understood that the war was lost. But for another 2 years he continued the agony of his insane Reich simply because he was obsessed with war. He could try to conclude a separate peace, leave the occupied territories, stop the genocide and somehow come to an agreement with the rest of the world. But Hitler could not. It was no longer he who controlled the war, but the war controlled him. And the same is happening with Putin.